All right, so we, in our pages here, we got up to, let's see, yeah, we got up to page 3. We're on, those of you who have these pages, we're on page 3, and we did last time Kaf Daled, Kaf Daled. Kaf Gimel, Kaf Daled we spoke about. Kaf Gimel, page 3, Kaf Gimel and Kaf Daled. We said there on Kaf Gimel, Shemaiti mi'adoni avi zakeni zal ki ha'osios b'li perush. This is the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov saying that when you think about the osios, you don't have to worry about the perush of the otiot. Even though it's, of course, it's much, much better if you do understand what the words mean. Then it can become more emotional to you. Because we say in the Kriyat Shema every single day, V'yahavta eis Hashem Elokecha. Hashem doesn't only want your mind, He wants your love. V'yahavta in Hashem Elokecha. He wants you to love Him. He wants your heart also. That is the way to be a complete Jew. When you give Hashem your mind and your heart. And it says, B'kol levavcha, you have to put your entire heart into it. B'kol levavcha. So if you understand the words, it makes it easier to put your heart into it because you understand what you're saying. And you can put all your emotions into the words as well. But if you do not understand the words, as long as you understand what you're doing, you are trying to connect to Hashem through the words. And that is enough for you to put your heart into that. I want fully to put my whole self into the words because I know inside the words lies the Shekhinah. And I want to go into the word and connect to Hashem inside the words.
Inside each letter.
Inside each letter, correct. Yeah, very good, Chicago. You're very right, because even though each letter, we think of a word because a word is something more substantial, but each letter itself contains the entire world. Everything is interconnected. Every letter contains the entire world. He said that beforehand. He says it in Chav David, and the next one, Shamaiti ki kol teva nichlal mikol ha'olam. You see that in Chav David? Kol teva nichlal mikol ha'olam. Every word. It's really every letter. It's really every letter. Because every letter is a product of the entire world. Everything is interconnected. So every letter has some percentage of it, and how small it may be doesn't make a difference. Every letter has really an interconnection with the entire world. So in the entire universe, and what is that? That is the Shekhinah. If you go into the letter, you're going into the universe, you're going into the letter, you'll be connecting with the Shekhinah, with Hashem. That's what you have to do. Now, we all know, we've been living around in this world for quite some time. We are creatures of what we call creatures of habit. We exist on inertia. Inertia means something which happens to be in process. It will keep on being in process unless something stops it. That's the way things are. If you take a ball and roll the ball, it'll keep on going until a certain place. Why is it stop? I gave it energy to push it. What's stopping it? Well, what's stopping it is there is air, that it is pushing against air. There's also the friction of the ground, which is slowing it up. If I were able to push it in the air without ground, it would go further. But the ground provides some kind of deterrent. It slows up the motion. In other words, the inertia by itself means pushing the ball in the air. It would go on and on and on for a very long time because the air doesn't provide too much friction. But the ground that it's on provides a lot of friction, and that slows it up until it stops. We are also creatures of habit, and we exist with inertia. We tend to do what we always do until something stops. Something tells us to stop. We will go on doing what we do because of creatures of habit. That the inertia, that the way we've been doing things until now, we're going to do them in the future as well. Well, I'm here to stop you. I'm here to stop you from going on with your old ways. Like I did to myself. I stopped myself, and I want also you to stop too. Because we have been brought up and we have seen what we think tefillah is. And we have to become very, very committed to feel that we have to make a change in that. We have to change course. We cannot continue doing what we're doing. Now, I know very well that when I go to a shiur or I learn something, I can absorb it and know it, but if I have to put it into practice, that's something else altogether. I have to change my behavior. I have to change the inertia from going in one direction, I have to go to another direction, or I have to make it faster or slower. That takes a concerted effort. That's not just going on with what I've been doing now. I learned something, and it's required of me to make a change. Why? Because we say every single day in Tefillah, we ask Hashem for Rachmanis. What do we say? Avinu, Av HaRachamon, Hamarachem. Look how we call Hashem's mercy. Avinu Av HaRachamon, Hamarachem, Rachem Aleinu. Already 3 times I said the word Rachmanis. Same with Libeinu, Bina, Lahavin, Lahaskia, Lilmod, Lame, Lishma, Velasos, Lekayem. I know and I learn, and after I learn, give me the mentality that I need also to put into practice what I learn. That's much harder. That's all the way at the end of the line. Lishmor v'lisos v'lekayem is called dirisal matorasecha. To do it is another story altogether. Now here we have, what was your name again? Excuse me. Gabriel. Gabriel come over to me this morning, and he said, you know what we learned last time about thinking about the bays with the nakuda and going inside to the bays? He said, I did it. I did it. I used it to go inside to the bays. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. To take what you learn and put it into practice, that is another story altogether. It takes a commitment or a decision. You say, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to go along with what I've been doing until now and worrying about the minyan and kedusha and all these things. I'm going to do. I'm going to do one bracha of Shmona Esrei. It should really be done for the entire Shmona Esrei, which will take 2 hours, not an hour. Take 2 hours. We can't afford 2 hours of Shmona Esrei alone. Although I did have a friend who did it many, many years ago, and it took him bemis 2 hours to daven.
Not here. We finish davening here in 15 minutes every morning.
Before you turn around, you're finished. That's a very big problem.
Yes,
This is something which is a product of the gullus. Everything quick and fast. And, davening is something which you do that you have to get out of the way so that you go on and do your other things.
See, that's the attitude that I don't like. I don't like that attitude.
Well, that's good. The fact that you don't like it, it's already good. It's already good. But now that you don't like it, you have to make yourself do something about it. And what you have to do is the following. You have to make a program. How are you going to work it out? It's everybody individually, how they work it out by themselves. You have to work it out somehow that you start the Shmona Esrei with everybody else. Hashem S'masai Tiftach. You start the Shmona Esrei with everybody. After that, forget about the world. Forget about the world. Be concentrated totally on doing that, at least for the first bracha. Not only for the first bays, for the first bracha. Bays, the reish. I'll tell you something else. We'll see later on about Shem Tov. He says it himself. I didn't make it up. The best and the highest way is to have it in your mind. You close your eyes, you see the bays, and you expand it, and you think of yourself going into the bays. You become part with the bays. You become one with the bays. And then and the bays goes up to Shemaim, you go up with it. Then you think of the Reish, and then the Vav, and then the final Chaf. So you have said Baruch. Then you have Atah, Aleph, the Tov, the Hey. Do the same thing. It doesn't take long. It's just in the beginning. You're not used to it. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. Then you do the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Elokeinu, Elokei Avoseinu, Elokei Avraham. It'll take you 15, 20 minutes to finish one Esrei because of that first bracha.
See, I understand the rest of the minyan. They have, most of them have to do something else after davening.
Right, okay.
But some of us who are retired, we don't have to rush through the davening.
So you have two eitzes. One eitzah is to daven in an earlier minyan, so then you have more time. That's one thing. Or, like I said before, you start the Shmona Esrei together with them,
And then you take the rest of it.
and then you do your thing and forget about them.
That's what I've been doing.
That's the way out. I finished, I'll give you an example. Today, I finished my Shmona Esrei today. They were up to Ashrei Uva L'Tzion when I finished Shmona Esrei. That means I missed Chazaras and Shatz, I missed Birchas Kohanim, I missed Kedusha, I missed Tachanun with them. I came, when I finished my Esrei, they were starting Asher and Valencia.
Rabbi said there's no tachanun today. Why?
Today?
Why did he say it?
It's because our shul is receiving a new Sefer Torah. Not here, but the one in Naftali. And because of that, there's no Torah.
What shul?
The Chabad shul in Naftali.
What does it have to do with us?
Well, they're connected with us.
Oh, so they're getting a new Sefer Torah,
Yes.
so we don't say tachanun?
That's right.
I never heard of such a thing.
All right. Okay. All right, that's a side thing. Tachanun, that's a whole parsha in itself.
Yeah.
Tachanun, saying Tachanun, not saying Tachanun. Okay. But anyway, I think so. You got the right idea. You got the right idea.
Good.
I don't do it for every Shmona Esrei, but you see, sometimes Mincha and Ma'ariv I don't do it. But at least I want to know I have one good solid tefillah. So I make sure Shacharis every single day. That's why I do it. Now this is a compromise. This is the compromise, doing only the first bracha. But since the first bracha is the main bracha according to the takana of Chazal, when they instituted our brachas, they said if a person doesn't have kavanah the first bracha, you have not been yotzei the takana of tefillah, according to Chazal. You have a yotzei. The first bracha is the most important. The second bracha of importance is modim. That's the second most important bracha is modim and achnulach. Those two. And it's interesting, not our bakashas, our requests that we have for Slach Lanu, Hashivenu, or those are requests. Those are requests. They are less important than our giving to Hashem praise and gratitude. The first is the praise, Shevach, the first bracha, and Modim is the gratitude. Those are the most important two brachas of Shemona Esrei. Ad Kadei Kach, there are some Rishonim who hold that if you finish the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, you said bracha to Hashem, Magen Avraham, and you realize your mind wandered. Even in the first bracha, your mind wandered already. So what do I do now? Should I stop and start from the beginning again? I didn't have kavanah for the first bracha. So there's some who hold if you have kavanah for modim, b'diavad you'll be yotzei. Because modim and the first two are very, very similar, and you can be yotzei just with modim alone to make up for the first bracha. So anyway, those two are the most important brachas of Shemona Esrei. So if you want to have a kavanah for a second bracha, you feel you want to do two brachas with the kavanah that we learned to go into the word bo ala teva. So the second one I would say you should do is probably modim. The second one. And then, if as you get more experienced, you can continue on according to your own pace with that. All right. All right. So anyway, as I was saying, the main point is we have to make a commitment. We have to say to ourselves, okay, I had enough of this already. At my age, I want to leave this world. I want to feel that I did something at the end of my life to show that my age is a benefit. Not that I'm getting old, I'm getting weaker, I'm doing less. As I get older, my mind is more sharper. I'm having a greater value system and going up. I want to make something of my life. At the end of my life also, have a new phase in my life where I am doing something better than I did all the rest of my life. That's up to you. You can do it. You can do it.
Right. That's right.
Very important. Very important. And we have no idea how much every little thing makes a big, big impression up there. We can't measure that. We cannot measure. Every little thing makes a big, big impression up there. Tremendous. Tremendous. Okay, let's go on now, where we're holding. We're up to, we did Chav Gimel, Chav Dilad, now we just reviewed that. Chav Hey, Da, Ki Kol Teva, Hu Koima Shlema. Tzorch Lios, Kol Kocho Ba. Every word, you say, it's really every letter, as you said before, but every word is really an entire network. Every word, and you have to put everything into it. Ki Yim Lav, Tia Kamo Mechusar Ever. It's as if you're lacking a limb, because it's all our outcome of you. It's your whole self. It's your whole self. And if you don't have your whole self in it, it's like you're just weak. You're lacking an Avery. There's something lacking in you, and therefore what's lacking in you is lacking in the word and the tefillah. So you have to put everything into it. Your whole self has to go with it. You can't jump into the car and leave your foot outside. Remember the example we gave, grabbing a hitch. You're going along with the word. The word is taking you with it. It's like a ship which is going. You can't leave your foot out. You have to put everything into it. Otherwise you're mechusar ever. Okay. Chavav. Hamachavein b'tfilasav. You have your page? You want that? You have
I have it here.
Oh, sure, you should look. Chavav. That's page 3. Page 3, Chavav. This is what we said, which is a very important piece that we have to remember. This is very important for Chanoch, because he doesn't understand any Hebrew at all. Well, very little. So he said the following. Look at that. A person who has kavanah with all of the perushim that he knows. You learned all the kavanos. Let's say you learned all the Kabbalistic kavanos that you know. The maximum you can have kavanah is what you know. You can't have kavanah something you don't know. Right? It should be gedolah. The grammar here is not perfect. A person who davens with his kashrus, with a lot of dveikus, he puts himself totally into the word. Nichlal bekol hateva, kol hakavanos me'atzman u'me'aleya. You see that? Here we have what you said. Shekol ois va'ois hu olam shalei. Every letter is an entire world. Every is an entire world. And when you attach yourself to that world, ukisha omer hateva biskashrus gedola bevadai, yeah, bevadai. Misorin Aisod ha'olamas ha'elyonim. You are going to arouse those upper worlds. V'ose pu'ulos gedolos b'zeh. And you are doing great activity with this. L'chein yira adam l'espalo b'eskashrus u'b'eslahavus gedolah. U'b'vadai yaseh b'zeh pu'ulos gedolos ba'olamas ha'elyonim. And kikol os ma'ore l'mala. Turn off the whole phone. Just turn off the whole phone, that's all. That happens.
I'm not too technical.
But
I don't know how to answer the phone, never mind turning it off.
so here we just had an insight that Rabbi has told us. He says every letter is such a, you're just, joining, and the letters go up and they do their tikkunim b'shamayim. Turn off the phone, yeah? Turn off the phone. Just turn off the phone. If you don't turn off the phone, it's going to ring again. Turn it on.
It says turn it, well, you want to turn it off. Swap down, but it doesn't go off.
You're going to give me, I'll try to work for you.
I'm okay. I turned it off.
Okay. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Chav Zayin. Gam im tfilaso tia zaka ubrura. Even if you have a pure tefillah, bevadai im. He says im, because not everybody is so able to have a pure tefillah. It's clear. Im. If you're fortunate enough, and the only way you can do that, the only way you can do that is you have to prepare yourself before davening. You have to be in the right mental state. If you come in off the street, like people do this with mincha and mayra very often, they come in, as I say in Yiddish, chapa mincha. Chapa mincha, chapa mayrav. How long is? I looked at my shul. I was looking at the clock. I wanted to see how long mayrav takes. Mayrav takes not more than 15 minutes. Not more than 15 minutes, maximum. From Baruchu, mayrav, v'hurachum v'baruchu, until Shmona Esrei is 5 minutes. That's all. That's all it is. 5 minutes. The whole thing, all the brachas, Kriya Shema, not more than 5 minutes. Then 4 or 5 minutes Shmona Esrei, right? That's 10 minutes. And then you have Kaddish and Aleinu, another couple of minutes. So maximum 15 minutes. Maximum 15 minutes. Mincha is almost the same. It's not the same. I didn't time Mincha, but it's almost about the same. Well, if you don't have the right mental state, what can I tell you? Chazal tell us that in the Gemara they realize this. And tefillah takes time to prepare. We have to realize we are so materialistic. We're interested and we live in the world of Gashmias. It's a physically oriented world. And we're busy with all kinds of things. All of a sudden you want to stop and talk to God. You have to prepare yourself. If you had an audience with an important personality, you wouldn't just come in off the street and start talking to him. You would make sure your clothes are arranged properly. You would have it written out beforehand what you want to say to him. You go over it a few times. Well, if you're talking to God, Allah is kama v'kama. Allah is kama v'kama. You can't just stuck to God, coming off the street. How are you? I haven't seen you in a long time. That doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. To talk to God requires preparation. Even before you do a mitzvah, any davar shebekadusha requires preparation. And preparation is more important than the execution of the mitzvah itself. Someone gave you an example. If you want to shoot a gun, you know how long it takes to shoot a gun? A second. An ounce of pressure on the trigger. But you want to make sure that your bullet hits the mark. Well, you have to set it up beforehand. You have to steady yourself. It takes a long time to get it set up before you pull the trigger. Pull the trigger takes a second. But it's not going to work unless you have the proper preparation beforehand. Well, the same thing is you want your tefillah to do something, you want it to accomplish something. What are you wasting other time? What are you wasting your time? You don't waste your time. If you're doing something, you might as well do it and make sure it's effective. That's only going to happen if you prepare yourself beforehand. So therefore, if a person wants to do things properly, he knows that the minyan officially starts at 7 o'clock minyan. Whether it's shachar, doesn't matter. No. He has to come at least 6:45 beforehand to sit down, to think what he's going to do, maybe say korbanos, warm himself up. Then you can go into the Shemona Esrei, and then it's possible to have your tefillah could be zaka or brura. But if it's a chapanish, what am I going to say? You shouldn't daven altogether. Chas v'shalom. You're not going to tell a person, don't daven. Don't daven. But better than nothing. But if you want to make sure the tefillah, come a little bit earlier, give kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and prepare yourself. Think, who am I going to speak to now? I'm going to speak to God. Practice a couple of times. Bo'al HaTeva. Think in your mind. Practice session. Baruch, Beis, Reish, Vav, Chaf. Think about it. And you know, sometimes you don't have the ability to imagine it in your mind. You cannot do that. My mind is a little bit, it's too cluttered right now. It's too cluttered with all kinds of things to clear my mind and think of the letters. I can't do it. So what do you do? What's the next eitzah? The next eitzah is open up the siddur. Put your finger on the base. Put your finger on it. And therefore you're going to now be focused on the, and think of yourself going into the base in the siddur. But that's easier because it's something that you can see. It's not just in the imagination. It's more concrete. If it's more concrete, it's easier to identify with it and to focus on it. So that's second best. It's second best. It's best is if you can have a relaxed mind and have the picture of the base in your mind and think of yourself going into the base, and then to the Reish, and then to the Vav, and then to the Chaf. But if you can't do it because your mind is too unsettled, then open up your eyes, look in the siddur, point with your finger at the base, and then at the Reish, and think of yourself going into each letter individually, and that's also good. It's also good. That's what we call, you'll see the Baal Shem Tov calls it later here, that's called when you're on the level of Mochin de Katnus. You have Mochin de Godless. Mochin means your mindset is of godless. It's a mature mindset. You're controlled. You're very, very rational. It's in control. It's relaxed. It's a kind of mind that you could use for meditation. That's mochin de godless. But if you can't focus right now, so you're on a level of katnus, it's called mochin of katnus, then you need the siddur to help you. Okay, so let the siddur help you. Look at the siddur, point at the letters, and think of each letter one by one. Okay. Gam, im tfilaso tia zaka brura. If you'll be zaycha, that your tefillah is pure and is clear, bevadai min hahevel, or haval is the word, hakadosh, hayotze mipiv. The air, the holy air that comes out of your mouth, yizdabek v'yischaber im haval ha'elyon. You will attach yourself to this air which is above Hashemayim, hadavek a love which is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nichnas a love bitmidus, and that air is always connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. K'mo she'amru, Rabbi Seinu Zechor Lavracha, al pasuk, kol haneshama tahalel yah. What does the Chazal say on that? What is kol haneshama? Al kol neshima v'neshima. Sha'adam no shame, every breath that a person takes, v'yotze ha'ava mimenu misato la'ela, this breath goes from you, from the bottom up, v'chozeres elav, look what it says now, chozeres elav me'ela l'sata, it's going to have a boomerang effect, it is to come back down. After it goes up there and connects, it comes back down and it brings down energies that it recharged itself up there. B'vadai benakel yuchal litchaber chelek elokus asher betoch ha'adam el shorsho. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. You actually can maybe connect. I got to tell you something that I saw in a Igeris. There was the Gra wrote a famous letter called the Igeris HaGra. The Vilna Gaon. He was on a journey to come to Eretz Yisrael. He had his Talmidim when he came here. The first major settlement of the West in Eretz Yisrael. There always was the Eastern people here from Edot HaMizrach. They, the people, the Sfardim, they were always here in Eretz Yisrael. But the first major yishuv of Ashkenazim who came in, as far as I know, were the Talmidim of the Gra. He wanted to come also to Eretz Yisrael, and he set out to come here. And while he was on his trip, he wrote a letter back to his wife and to his mother, to his children. He wrote a letter giving them instructions of how to live in his absence. So when he was there, so he gave chizuk to the family. But in his absence, it's a major loss. And the Gra is not there, and the father of the family is not there, and he's the Gra. So I was just looking at it this morning. Was it this morning? Yes, I think this morning. I looked at it early this morning. And I saw at the end, oh no, it was last night. It was last night I looked at it, right, between Mincha and Ma'ariv. I was so shocked to see what he says. You got to hear this. The Igeris HaGra, he writes, in the last paragraph, he writes, this is an amazing statement. He says, the main factor which is going to get a person Olam Haba, the main factor, and he says, more than all the Torah and all the Meisim. This is amazing. It's mountainous. The main factor which is going to get a person Olam Haba, more, and the Gra was a masvid, unbelievable masvid. His whole life, he used to write down at the end of the year, he had maybe a minute and a half. He had a special book for every second that he was mavatul. The Gra was famous for his hasmada. He writes, more than all the Torah and all the Meisim to do, the main factor which is going to be your determinant for Olam Haba is Shmiras HaPeh. Not Tefillah. That's also included. Shmiras HaPeh. And he says, because HaPeh is Kodesh Kedoshim. That's the words he used. I was so shocked, I had to show it to somebody right away. The next person I saw, I know he was saying Kaddish, he said, where I davened, right before Ma'ariv, I showed it to him. That is a shocker. We think, you learn a lot of Torah, you do a lot of mitzvahs, do a chesed. Great! But more so, what's going to determine your Olam Haba is Shmiras HaPeh. To make sure you don't say the wrong things, try to minimize your words. Don't use extra words, and I certainly don't say the wrong things. And I give you a wonderful eitzah. You want to practice? I'll tell you how to practice it. How do you practice it? On Shabbos, we have a pasuk that we say in Kiddush every day, every Shabbos morning. Not everybody says it. Some just say, Al Kain Berach, whatever Baruch Shah called it, whatever. But there's some Sidurim that they have a whole Hagdama. And over there it says, Im Toshe, Pasuk in Yeshayahu, Im Toshev v'Shabbos reglecha asos chavetzecha miyom kodshi v'kidash v'karos l'Shabbos oineg v'kdash l'Shem b'chubat v'chibadatai mi'asoy tzvecha mimtzay chevtzecha v'davar davar v'chibadato mimachabet Shabbos mimtzo chevtzecha v'davar davar b'machabet Shabbos, from that being Isaac in your chafetzim v'davar davar, and not speaking what you want to speak. So what does v'davar davar mean? What does it mean v'davar davar? Chibadato mimtzo chevtzecha v'davar davar. Stay away from your mundane chafetzim, your occupations of all week long. Don't be busy with all your things all week long. And also with the diburim should be different. In what way should the diburim be different? In what way should they be different? So one opinion says that the topics that you discuss on Shabbos, you should not, during the week, you should not discuss on Shabbos. That's simply, I make my weekday speaking is whatever I want to speak about, as long as it's not an avera, I can speak about it. I want to speak about stocks, speak about stocks. I want to speak about sports, speak about sports. During the week, it's okay. On Shabbos, not. Shabbos, your dibur has to be only about Hashem, Kedusha, Torah, mitzvahs, davening, a different kind of speech.
Years ago.
Wait, let me finish. Save your comment. I want to hear your comment. Let me finish the thought. So comes along Tosfos, and he has a complaint to Rashi. Tosfos is his grandson. He says to complain to Rashi. What do you mean different kinds of talk? That always included in Mimtzah Chefzecha. Don't be occupied with your mundane things, so that also includes your speech. That can't be the davar that they speak differently, different kinds of topics. Can't be, because that's what Mimtzah Chefzecha is telling you. So what's v'davar davar? Tosha says. Tosha says v'davar davar means to minimize the amount of words that you say, not the kind of topics that you talk about, but speak less. Speak less on Shabbos. And he brings an example of Rabbi Tarfon, whose mother was very talkative. Came along Shabbos, so Rabbi Tarfon said to his mother, Ima, Shabbos hayom. So she minimized, she stopped talking. So if you want to have practice in Shmiras HaPeh, I tell you from my personal experience, it changed my life tremendously. I didn't do it. I did this already. I started doing this when? Maybe 20, 30 years ago. I took on myself because I saw that if I'm not careful, it's not good for shalom bayis. It's not good for, in general, just to keep on talking regular things. I took on myself on Shabbos to practice a tainas dibur. What is a tainas dibur? Doesn't mean that I don't speak at all. Of course I speak. But what I speak about on Shabbos, I'm very, very careful. First of all, tefillah, of course. Torah, of course. But anything else besides Torah and tefillah is, for me, outlawed, taboo. Only Torah and mitzvahs and tefillah is the only thing I speak about on Shabbos. It changed my life tremendously. That's considered a tainas dibur. No worldly talk. No worldly talk. Shabbos, even to say, that Tosfos over there that spoke about it, Rabbi Tarfon and his wife says, the Rishalmi says, Bekoshi hitiru lagid Shabbat Shalom. Bekoshi. Not lechatchila are they so happy about saying Shabbat Shalom to somebody. You should certainly smile. We'll go that far that we can do it. To say good Shabbat to somebody, Shabbat Shalom, okay. But I tell you something. First of all, let me hear what your comment was. Go ahead.
A few things came to my mind. One in Pekei Avot. So that's 2 times. 1, don't speak too much to women, including your
Al
wife.
taber sichel ishi ima isha, right.
And then it says, if you're sitting at a table with a bunch of Talmud Chacham, don't open your mouth. Because if you don't open your mouth, if you open your mouth, they're going to know that you're stupid. If you keep your mouth closed, they'll think that you're also a Talmud Chacham.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, you listen to this. You gotta hear this.
Oh, but then,
Yeah.
But I read somewhere years ago, like in the 1800s, when, even before that, they would set up a synagogue. The rabbi would have sections of people that were in different kinds of trade. They would all sit in one section, so they could talk to each other, and that was forbidden. There was a rabbi in New York, I think in Long Island, who wrote a book on the problem of talking in synagogue. I don't know if you know about this rabbi. I can bring you a copy of this. It causes all kinds of problems for Jews speaking in shul.
I'll tell you two things. I'll tell you. In Europe, there was a big problem. People are talking in shul, and there was a Tosfos Yontif. There was a Magefa. Tosfos Yontif came out with a special tefillah, a special mishaberach, and he said all the Magefa that happened was because of the talking in shul. It's mizalzel in the Makom Kadosh, and people were dying until they took that on, and then it stopped. But I'll tell you something else. There was a shul, I forget the name of the shul, I read about it, that somebody who lived in Poland or Germany or Russia, and then migrated to England, and they set up another shul. And he said, in this shul, there's going to be no talking. Then came World War II, and the Nazis were bombing England tremendously. Every single night, they were bombing England all the time.
Right.
Most of the shuls were destroyed. There was one shul that was not touched. That shul, that there was no talking, that one shul remained whole. That's one thing I want to tell you. The next thing I'm going to tell you is an amazing thing. Now, we're brought up, I was brought up anyway, I was always told this. When you come home, it's a Gemara in Masechus Shabbos. When you come home from shul Friday night, the malachim escort you, and they come into the house and they see the table is set and the candles are burning, and there's a whole atmosphere of Shabbos, and they give you a bracha, and that's why you're saying Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shabbos, to the Malachim. I had a Rebbe who said to me the following. Listen to this. And I'm going to give you an example. So you come at a shul Friday night, you say L'cha Dodi, B'chat Hashem, Mekadesh Shabbos, and you say Kaddish, and afterwards you sing maybe, I don't know, Lam at the end, whatever it is. So you finish stuffing Friday night, and you're on the way home. So the Malachim come walking with you. Let's say you were being escorted by Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, Zatzal, on one side, and Lubavitcher Rebbe on the other side, or Rav Moshe Feinstein, some Godlador, Rav Shach, Zatzal, they're escorting you, and you're in the middle. They're escorting you on the side, right? Now, what are you going to say on the way home?
Nothing.
If you have any brains at all, you keep your mouth shut. Right? Let them talk. Let them talk. You want to show what a fool you are by opening your mouth.
Right.
The maximum you could do is ask a shayla. If you want to ask a shayla, then the paskin for you, okay. But you to take the initiative and start the conversation, who are you to talk with these gedolim around? Malachim? A little bit more than these gedolim. Malachim are very, very sensitive. If these gedolim would be very sensitive and be insulted even, what would malachim react to your conversations? If you're walking with somebody else or you meet somebody in the street, Shalom, man your name, what's going on? I haven't seen you. What are these malachim going to do? My Rebbe told me the malachim are simply going to leave. They do not stay in an atmosphere which is not fitting for them. They leave.
And then you go home alone.
And you go home alone, and you do not get the bracha from the malachim. So my Rebbe used to tell me, be very careful. When you come out of shul Friday night, you don't say a word until after Kiddush. That's wonderful. It's so beautiful. You want the malachim to stay with you. Who doesn't want to get a malachim from the malachim?
When you say Kiddush for Kavanah, you rid yourself of any sins that you've had. Why?
That's
Because
one of the.
Because you're testifying of what God did.
That's one of the. That's what the Gemara in Savish says. It's a pasuk in Yeshayahu v'chatos techupar. You get a kapara.
You're a witness.
But
Hashem doesn't let you be a witness free of sin.
But you're missing one point. One missing point. We paskin that kapara does not come without tshuva. You don't. It's not a free for all. So in the Svardish Sidurim, in many of them, I don't know all, but what I've seen, there's a nusach to say before tefillah. And part of the nusach is Anachnu chozrim b'tshuva. And I took that on as a practice in my house, and all my children, my grandchildren come, they come to us for Shabbos. Before I start Yom HaShishi, Kavana lachzor b'tshuva. It takes a second. Have a kavana, a thought, I want to connect with the Kodesh Baruch Hu again. That's all. That's all you need. I want to connect with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Kavana lachzor b'tshuva. Then I start Yom HaShishi. And then you get the kapara. Because you have the tshuva, and the malachim give you the kapara, and you didn't speak narishkeit on your way home from shul, you're all set for the week. You're all set for the week. You're starting off Shabbos a new person. You do tshuva, tshuva wipes the slate clean. You're starting off, and you can use that as a beginning for the entire Shabbos. Go on that way. Don't talk at the table all kinds of foolish things. Just like we say any mitzvah, you have to prepare for it. I used to have a Rebbe say, did you prepare for the meal? I said, how do you prepare for the meal? He says, prepare it for Torah. Did you prepare the meal? There are so many things available today in any language you want. You can open up the internet. There's so much divrei Torah on the parsha. There's so many manuals. There's so many magazines. There's a million things you could talk about at the table which are interesting. Prepare for the meal. That's how you prepare for the Shabbos meal. Then you talk about the politics. You can talk about the Irish politics. Well, that's only going to make machlokes.
Talk Torah at the table. The rest of the people are going to start to talk about politics.
Right. That's what you got to do. You have to prepare. A person who's sitting at the head of the table, you determine the tone and the mood of the table by starting off with the Dvrei Torah. That's right. That's the best thing. Prepare Dvar Torah. What you learned during the week, or what you read, you read up something. That's how you prepare for the meal for Shabbos. It's wonderful.
We say, we don't say, the custom is not to say the last stanza.
Some people have that custom. You know why?
They say
Why?
Of course.
I don't say it.
Okay, I also don't say it. You know why? Some people do say it. The Sfardim go even further. The Sfardim say, instead of saying Tzeischem L'Shalom, they say B'Shiftechem L'Shalom. They invite the Malachim to sit down. You say to them, Borachem L'Shalom, Bochuni L'Shalom, come and give me a bracha. Then you chase them out.
Right.
Chase them out. B'Shiftechem, sit down. And some people don't say Tzeischem L'Shalom because they don't want the Malachim to leave. They want them to stay. That's why you don't say it. That's why you don't say it. These are Malachi HaShalom, right? You want to have Shalom in the house? These are Malachi HaSharis. We say Malachi HaShalom. It brings a bracha of Shalom to the house, and you don't want them to leave. Let them stay. If they want to leave, them. But I'm not telling them to go. I don't tell them to go. If they want to leave, it's up to them. But I don't say Tzeischem. I don't tell them to say go. as far as I'm concerned, you should all stay. Yes, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I had briefly a very amazing Shabbat in Tel Aviv. You wouldn't expect to have such a great Shabbat in Tel Aviv. Just in Kabbalah Shabbat, the little children, they don't run away to the trampoline. They are running around for all the time around the bima. They had like Simchat Torah almost, huh?
Yeah, I heard that in Tel Aviv. I heard that there's a big. They put up tents. Someone told me in the middle of Tel Aviv, State Road Rothschild. They have these tremendous tents. The Chilonim, they come in. They want to have some kind of a feeling of Shabbos, so they have these tremendous tents with tables, and the rabbi they make kiddush, and they have some smiras. They give them something to eat, and the people are dying for something.
Yeah.
They want something. They need some spirituality in their life. The world today is empty. It's empty. It's politics and all kinds of narishkeit.
20 years ago, Rabbi Lau came to me and asked me if I would open up a kosher restaurant in Tel Aviv, but there were very few kosher restaurants in Tel Aviv. I said, no, I'm not going to go to Tel Aviv. It's like New York to me. I don't know.
No, what I want to say about speaking on Shabbat, there was no time to speak up. It was in a private apartment with the Rav. There was no time to speak. After the meal, they are singing and singing and singing. It was just endless singing with joy and happiness, nothing forced, like it came out of what you say, the longing of the people. Huh? It was like Laila Seder. The children made Simchat Torah around the bima, and after we had Laila Seder, endless singing.
Okay,
No
that's also good.
Yeah,
That's also
yeah.
good.
At least we didn't speak about what you say,
No.
politics.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, that's it for today, Rabbi Sai. So.